for joining us on this edition of Frontline. I am Obiora Ilo. In the past week, so much has happened in our nation. Of course, the PDP reconciliation is going on. Recently, women converged in Abuja to talk about women emancipation. And just also within the week, we had 3 months of the military intervention in those states where we have a state of emergency. In our program today, the Director of Defense Information, General Chris Olukolade, will be joining us by phone a little later in the program. Also on this program, we'll be speaking with the Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations and the Special Advisor on Post-2015 Development Planning at the United Nations, our own Amina Mohammed. But with me in the studio to start off our conversation this afternoon is the very distinguished Senator Ibrahim Mantu. Ibrahim Mantu is a member of the PDP Board of Trustees. He's also a member of the current PDP Reconciliation Committee. My pleasure to have you in our studio, Senator Mantu.
Thank you very much.
Well, a lot of people have said different things about the PDP. Crisis specialists, you just name it. And every day we see these problems in the PDP. Why is the PDP a party that's always reconciling? A party that's always in crisis, reconciliations, and all that.
Well, first and foremost, you must appreciate the fact that this is the first time in the history of Nigeria that democracy has endured for this long. And again, this is the first time in the history of this country that a particular political party has been in government for over 14 good years. And by the nature of our people, you know, they always want change, even if it's for the worse. People want change, even if it's for the worse. And the PDP having survived these years, definitely, I think it needs commendation rather than condemnation. But the fact that we disagree to agree, I think that is democracy in action. You must appreciate the fact that the PDP disagrees to agree, because in most cases, some people, when they disagree forever, and they part ways forever. But we have an internally resolution mechanism that is very unique to us, that by the time we reconcile, it's as if we've never had differences at all. And you find that the fraternity and the togetherness works much more stronger than it was before. So I think it's something that should be commended, and the Nigerians should try to learn from us this special art that we have developed.
For reconciliation.
Yes.
And managing crisis.
Of course.
Okay. Sometimes it's difficult for us to differentiate between government and the PDP, because the government in power at the federal level is the PDP, is a PDP government. But just within the week, we scored applause when the 5 governors that have been all over the country sat down with the PDP chairman, Bamanga Tukur, and there was a lot of celebration for that. But this morning in the papers, we are hearing the presidential spokesman, the President's Special Assistant on Public Affairs, now criticizing these 5 governors and saying that all they want is to unseat the president and all that. Is there no synergy in this process of reconciliation? If this president's spokesman is talking from one side of his mouth and the PDP is talking from another side of their mouth?
Well, you see, let me say this. The relationship between the party and the government is like a relationship between a father and a son. The PDP is the father. The party gave birth to those who are today in government. And of course, even between a father and a son, there are times that they disagree. But of course, because there's this biological togetherness, they always also agree, because they have more in common than at variance. Now, don't forget that the differences that was reconciled was between the governors and the party chairman. not between the governors and the presidency.
So they are still quarreling with the presidency? They're still having issues with the presidency?
As far as I am concerned, I can't say that they are still having issues with the presidency because you quoted the presidential spokesman.
Yeah, Doyin Okugbe.
As saying,
Doyin Okugbe in the papers this morning.
Yes.
He spoke to a radio station in Kaduna.
Right. Now, he is an insider. He is inside the villa. He is the spokesman of the Mr. President. Maybe something must have cropped up between that time and now. I don't know. I'm not in a position to speak for Mr. President because I don't work for Mr. President. But he is the leader of our party and, in fact, the symbol of authority of the PDP. And I am a loyal party member. And, of course, I'm privileged to be in the Board of Trustees, so I also know what actually happens in the party. But I'm not in a position to know what happens on a day-to-day basis since I'm not actually involved.
But a lot of people are really worried that most times the party is doing something else and those that are working for the president are doing something else. Because I would have thought that since a reconciliation process is on, that even the presidential spokespeople must be very careful about what they say, well, so they don't, overheat the polity.
I am not in a position to condemn them because, you see, unless you hear both sides before you can actually know who is right and who is wrong, it will be most unfair for me to sit here and say the presidential spokesman is wrong or who is wrong, because I must have the two facts together. When you want to criticize, you must criticize objectively, not the kind of criticism that everybody like in this country. They criticize president, whether he is doing the best thing, they criticize him. Criticism should be objective, so that the person you are criticizing should actually benefit from your criticism. So I think for one to criticize objectively, you must listen to both sides of the story.
Okay.
And again, let me say this. The presidential spokesperson or spokesman are actually speaking on behalf of Mr. President. And don't forget that the party chairman has his own complement of
media people,
and
managers.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, there is a divide, of course, between what the party is doing and what the government is doing. Good luck, President. Good luck, Jonathan is running the government, while Alhaji Bamanga Tukuru is running the party.
Okay, distinguished Senator. Just this week, it was 3 months since the military intervened in those states where we have a state of emergency, and also within the week, we were able to speak to the Director of Defense Information in the person of Brigadier General Chris Olukolade. This was what he said.
Well, the assessment will be a relation of the present situation with what it was before Mr. President declared the state of emergency in those states. You will recall that there was the time that the sovereignty of the Nigerian state was violated to the extent that governmental authorities was usurped in many parts of the country, and a situation of near anarchy, or total anarchy rather, that made Mr. President take that decision. And by that, he mandated the Chief of Defense Staff to mobilize all the resources of the security agencies to deal with the situation. And the difference will be related to what it was at that time, like I said, and now. And what we now see is that in those places where strange and illegal flags were flying, they no more exist. There is no territory of this country at the moment that insurgents or terrorists have free rein to establish their own authority as they were trying to do us at that time. At the moment, all the camps that they used for such illegal activities and training and the disturbance of the nation's security in various places have been rooted out. And of course, that means they should be on rampage or marauding rather. And that is possibly responsible for any other action that is seen. But the usual freedom of action that they used to have before the state of emergency to terrorize citizens, to usurp their rights and disturb their peace is no more as free, because the bases they were using for such have been destroyed by reason of these operations. And also we find that the relative peace has given rise for the rejuvenation of economic and social activities in those parts of the Federation. You will find that even before the state of emergencies, some parts of the country, flights were have been stopped from going there. Those flights have resumed. For instance, IRS now flies Maiduguri comfortably. Social life have returned in those places, and generally the government institutions in those places that we said were usurped have gradually returned to function. Local government activities are on. Schools are also running in those places. Other activities that make up the recognition of the authority of the Nigerian state back into function. And also, it has been an opportunity for the Nigerian military and security agencies to prove their professional competence, and that has been acknowledged with the way this situation was managed. Before the declaration of the emergency, you will know that the initial concern of most people, particularly the international community, was the fear that rights would be usurped, and that by reason of trying to enforce the state of emergency, the freedoms of people will be disturbed, and their fundamental rights will be violated. But so far, that has been a suspicion that is no more real, in the sense that rights are not being usurped by the Nigerian security forces. Rather, it has become very clear, both to the local and international community, that the re-usurpation of the rights of Nigerians was the reason for the operation, to stop that usurpation. And by the professional management of the operations, the point has been well proved to Nigerians, and that is possibly also responsible for a situation where we now have more public support for the security agencies operating in those areas. Prior to the operation, you will recall that the problem was about how to get information that can translate into intelligence. There has been substantial improvement on that, to the extent that not only are the citizens willing to submit or supply such information, rather they are willing to get physically involved in apprehending people who are threats to security. Generally, a lot of improvement that we can point at.
Well, and joining us live by phone is Brigadier General Chris Olukolade. General, you're welcome to our program.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
Well, watching you just now, you've given us a lot of positive sides to what has happened in this last 3 months. General, can we have this situation endure in the months to come? Hello, General.
Yeah, what I heard you say last is about whether this situation can endure for the subsequent months.
Yes.
By the grace of God and the activities that are ongoing there, we believe that it will not only be sustained, but very well improved upon, to the extent that we are confident that we are better disposed now to accomplish the mission as given by Mr. President, who has mandated the forces to ensure the restoration of law and order, which has been substantially accomplished. We will just be consolidating on this and believing that subsequently the situation should be very well satisfactory to the authorities that emplaced the security activities.
Okay, General, I must confess that a lot of Nigerians are really impressed with what has happened in these last few months. Can you share with us some of the challenges that our operatives are having in these areas?
Well, most of the challenges are definitely being overcome somehow, and the challenges border mainly on the initial, what I call it, misinformation or suspicion that was being orchestrated from some quarters with a view to possibly, undermining the integrity of the forces involved, or just escalating the fears of the public. Gradually, we are getting over it, particularly with the cooperation of the Nigerian media, who have been very objective, so to say, and they have been so understanding, and their management of information about it has been quite cooperative compared to their counterparts elsewhere. With that relationships were surmounting that initial challenge of misinformation. Also, the cooperation of the people in the affected area has been a major issue of interest. Like I said, we have also gotten over it. The understanding generally is improving. The challenge now is to ensure that all those terrorists who managed to escape for whatever reason and are trying to cause problem here and there, but with the way the operation is being fashioned, with the various reviews that are going on, we also believe that we will surmount that challenge very shortly.
Okay, I must say that we had like a holiday from the kind of attacks we were witnessing. I mean, like on a day you had like 3, 4, 5 attacks spread across several cities. But we have, for some time now, we have this isolated, I could call them isolated incidents. What actually made that possible, and what are the operatives on the ground doing to ensure that these isolated attacks in villages are not allowed to continue?
Well, like we have explained a couple of times prior to this, the major reason for this is the interest of the terrorists in still giving the impression that they are active on ground. Much as they cannot strike in the cities as they used to do, they now find the rural areas or the settlements as vulnerable places where they can just get some attention. Of course, at this stage of terrorist activities, when they've lost ground, like we said, the tendency is to resort to activities that will get them into the news to give the impression that they are still active. With the tendencies like we identified earlier, we've also adjusted the number of deployment. The patrols have become more aggressive and very well intended to ensure that those activities in the rural areas that are inimical to operation and to security are curtailed as quickly as possible. In a few days to come, you will also notice a number of development that will boost the deployment of troops to ensure that the patrols are very far-reaching. And the patrols will not just be on road, they are also going to patrols on air and other places to ensure that it's no more that easy for these insurgents to carry out these destructive activities.
Okay, General, you've done a lot of trips back and forth to some of these hot spots. Let me ask you about the morale of our troops. How are they? Are they in high spirits? Do they find this?
Very much high spirit, and the fact that their activities are being appreciated by Nigerians has been highly encouraging to the troops. And I must tell you that they are highly motivated. Morale is high. Like I said, owing principally to the fact that they realize that their efforts are noted by Nigerians, and the involvement of the populace who have been the direct beneficiaries of their activities in the field have also been very encouraging. Then the constant interest shown by the leadership of the forces have also been a major source of motivation for the men in the field. I can assure you that the morale is quite very high.
Okay, let me conclude this conversation with something I find very curious and very very positive. The introduction of what you have called the civilian JTF, and people say that the injection of these civilians may have also helped in the fight against terrorism. How did the military come up with this very novel side to fighting terrorism?
You will note that the strategies in the military recently have paid some attention to the importance of civil-military relations, whether during operations or in peacetime. Also, it's an outcome of the achievements in the field and for a long period of campaign and encouragement to the public to support the operations that are ongoing. We believe that the latest development is a positive response to that call and campaign. And the way it is being managed is such that it's indicative of the level of confidence that the public have in the military and vice versa. That the military also has confidence in the people, that these people are out to help them succeed in the task they've been given by the authorities. And the synergy has been working very well. Where we think there's need for adjustment to prevent manifestation of any form of exuberance that can be inimical to the operation, gradually they have been taken care of, and the relationship is quite smooth, and like we said, it's indicative of a highly improved relationship between the civilians and the forces generally.
Okay, General, I must thank you, and I do hope you find time to come to the studio and throw more light on developments in these areas, and that if it is possible, you make it, you will be able to make it possible for us to talk to some of our operatives on the ground, so that Nigerians can really understand what's going on in these emergency areas.
All right, thank you very much. One of these days that will come to pass. And thank you for the support for your station. We appreciate it. We have been in our company to the field a couple of times, and each of your reporters has been so encouraging. Please keep it up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, General. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.
Well, Senator Mantu, we can't just talk about reconciliation without talking a little bit about what's going on in some of these states. Would you say that you agree with the general on the efforts that the military has made in fighting terrorism?
Oh yes, I mean all well-meaning Nigerians who have been following what they are doing in these states that are affected by this unfortunate development have commended the military and indeed congratulated the Nigerian armed forces. They have done a great job, and we can see clearly the result of their action on the field. I used to stay in Maiduguri many years back, and even before I came into the studio today, I've spoken to 3 people who were in Maiduguri, who traveled from Jos to Maiduguri. I mean, obviously nobody would have ventured to go to Maiduguri if the situation was as bad as it was before. But now life is returning to normal, like the general has said. Commercial activities are going on, social activities are going on, and we commend the Nigerian military. We congratulate them. We are very proud of them. I also want to seize the opportunity to ask Boko Haram to embrace this peace move by Mr. President, because that's reconciliation also.
Yes.
We want to make sure that the Boko Haram people and the government reconcile their differences. We know that they may have a very good reason for starting this fight, but you know it has gone beyond what people can appreciate. So therefore, there is a need for them, since government has now dangled an olive branch, that they should come and sit with them and tell government what their problems are. I think they should take advantage of this offer to sit down and discuss with government, so that we will be able to have total peace, lasting peace in these places, and not only that, we may benefit from that experience to make sure that such a thing does not happen anywhere in Nigeria.
Okay, distinguished Senator, we'll take a break to look at our frontline exchange for the week. And when we return, we'll go to the nitty-gritty of what your committee is doing to reconcile opposing members of the PDP. Don't go away. Glad to know you're still with us, and my guest is Senator Ibrahim Mantu. Of course, for those who remember, Senator Mantu used to be the Deputy Senate President of the Nigerian Senate, and today he's still a member of the PDP Board of Trustees and a member of the Committee on Reconciliation. You know, when we started, I was like, PDP is always reconciling. What is going to be different with what is going on now?
Well, let me say this. You see, if you look back, in 1999, the PDP won in most states. I don't want to say use the word capture because that's a military word. The PDP won in more states than they are now controlling today. Obviously, as a loyal party person and a committed Democrat, one would like to ask, what has gone wrong that we have lost some of the states? And from this kind of a question that one would ask, it now goes again to find out what is actually going wrong in the states today, because we do not want a situation where our fortunes will be dwindling. We need to sort of sit up and make sure that our fortunes don't go down, we don't nosedive. We must keep afloat if we cannot actually reach the peak that we used to have before. Now, as I'm talking to you today, so many people, in fact, let me say that almost all the political parties that have won any seat at all, most of them are breakaway members of the PDP. And in most cases, it is the PDP people, members, that used to, do anti-party by voting other parties because they are frustrated and so on and so forth. And when somebody is frustrated, there must be a reason. You must find out from him, why are you running away from a home you have built? And he will tell you his reasons. And of course, nobody would ordinarily leave a house he has built for another house unless it becomes absolutely necessary.
So what are some of the reasons you've discovered in the course of this reconciliation process?
Well, we've discovered that...
What is wrong in the party that's
really,
making some members...
What is wrong with the PDP is also wrong with almost all the political parties. I must accept this.
But today we're talking about the PDP.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, I'm being very frank,
Okay.
The problem with the PDP over the years, and which has affected our fortunes, is imposition of unpopular candidates on the people, on the electorate. In other words, the absence of internal party democracy. So over time, some people became very powerful, particularly incumbents of authority became very powerful, and they decided to discard or disregard the voice of the people. And democracy is about the right to choose. And indeed, democracy is about the majority having its way, and minority having its making its noise or whatever. So, this has affected our fortunes. And we are now trying to make to call the leadership of our party in every state. What is happening? Why have we lost? For example, we are starting with the non-PDP controlled states now. And that's a very good point to start. We've started with places like Ekiti. We were controlling Ekiti. Today we are no longer controlling Ekiti. We are controlling Osun. Today we are not controlling Osun. We are controlling Anambra. Today we are not controlling Anambra. All these places we are controlling Imo. Today we are not. So we are saying, what went wrong? We were controlling Oyo, Ogun, all these places. Ondo was PDP control. So we are calling the people, the stakeholders of the party, to try to find out what went wrong that they allowed the opposition to take over from them. And thank God we are actually getting to nitty-gritty of the problems. And I want to say that I'm personally very happy with what we are doing. Of course, it has not yet started yielding fruits or results because we have not actually accomplished the job yet. But from what we have done so far, I am very, very positive that we are going to recapture, or we are going to win back the confidence of the people in most of these states that we lost before.
I've also heard from very high-ranking members of your party that I may not identify here, that in most of the states, even where you have PDP controlling the states, that you're having problems because some of the governors are becoming too powerful. And you alluded to that when you said that incumbent authority. Is there anything the party is doing to see how they can beat some of these state executives into line?
Well, actually, this is perhaps the major problem between some chieftains of the party and the current leadership of the party. As you will recall, Alhaji Bamanga Tukur is a founding member of this party. And when they came together to found the PDP, it was found on populist ideology that this is going to be a masses party. And that is why they gave the party the slogan, power to the people. It means that the people were, whatever the people decided was going to be upheld, and was going to be the decision of the party. But as time went on, power was gradually slipping from the people to
a minority,
to some powerful individuals. And Bamanga himself, having been a victim of such marginalization at one point or the other, because you recall that the PDP was actually founded in his present office, BMT office, along the airport road there. And as soon as the party came into power, he was now marginalized. So having been a victim of marginalization, when he had the opportunity of coming to become the national chairman of the party, he felt that he was going to fight all these injustices so that we can now restore the glory of the party to the expectations and aspirations of his founding fathers. Now, obviously, this had some kind of there's a collusion, because if somebody is already used to dictating, in a state, and now you say, no, let us go back to the people and so on and so on, he may think that you are now challenging his authority. Let me give you a typical example, for example. In Adamawa State, where he comes from, Adamawa State is one of those states that INEC said that they did not witness congresses taking place there. There are 8 states, of course, it's in the public domain. There are 8 states that INEC publicly said they did not witness congresses taking place there to elect party chieftains from the ward to the state level. And Adamawa State is one of those states. Mamanga Tukur felt that, look, since my state is one of those states, charity begins from home. Let me start by putting things right in my home state, then I'll have the moral justification to
export
put things, to the other states, right?
Yes.
So, but in the course of doing that, it has now become like a war between Mamanga Tukur and Governor Nyako. It's not supposed to be the case at all. What are the issues? Mamanga Tukur said, look, the PDP constitution is sacrosanct. As chairman of the PDP, I have sworn to protect the constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and that of the PDP. And zoning is one of the fundamental issues, issues in the PDP constitution. And it says that if the chairman comes from this, if the governor comes from this part, the chairman should come from that part. That is why Mamanga Tukur is from northeast and Goodluck Jonathan is from south. So if it were not so, Goodluck Jonathan could have actually picked anybody from the south to become national chairman of the PDP. But our constitution does not allow that. But in this particular case, the former chairman is from the same ward with Governor Nyako, the same local government with Governor Nyako, and so on. But Mamanga said, look, we have to put it right. We have to correct this things.
And that has become a problem.
It has become a problem. Again, it led to having 2 factions. And of course, congresses were conducted, supervised by INEC, whereby leadership emerged from the ward to the state level.
That the governor refuses to acknowledge.
Now, this, and again the governor said, well, we are members of the governors forum. Touch one, touch all.
We'll come back and talk about, this problem with the governors and how they are using their forum to get their way. But we'll take a break, because just within the week, Amina Mohammed, former special assistant to the president on MDGs, who is now the Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, and also the special envoy of the Secretary General on what they have called post-2015 development planning, was in town. And I had a chat with her. Let's listen to it. It's surprising that a lot of Nigerians, a lot of people in the developing countries really do not understand what the MDGs are all about. And this is something you've done for a while. Tell me in the simplest of languages, when we talk MDGs, what exactly are we talking about?
Well, for us, I think what we're talking about is delivering services that are basically rights, basic rights: health, education, women's empowerment, getting to grips with the environment and access to water and sanitation, and a kind of partnership that says between rich countries and poor countries, we will provide the resources to make this happen. But it is, the MDGs is the baseline of what we need to do for our people. It's the minimum that you can ask for of a government. That it has an acronym complicates things because people think it is an international agenda. But if you unpack the MDGs, it's in every one of our constitutions. Our national constitutions all say provision of education and basic health and looking at gender rights and people's rights. So in a sense, it's not new. It's just that what we did with the MDGs was bring a focus to what should be happening that was not happening. By the time we started in 2000, we were not doing education or health well. We had some appalling health indices for maternal health, for education, for women's rights. And I think that the MDGs put a focus on that, where it sort of brought the political will, it brought different constituencies like civil society, the international community, to focus on doing the bare minimum for the poorest that we have in our countries.
While you were there in Nigeria, supervising that office, what were the great challenges that were like impediments for the realization of these goals? Because in Nigeria, we have not achieved these goals as we get to 2015. Yeah. What were the impediments, and what are still the impediments?
I think the impediments there, the first I'll say, which is probably least expected, is the cynicism. The fact that we believed we could not do anything through government, that there was a real lack of confidence that government could deliver anything. And when you have that, then you don't even have the connection and engagement of people to begin to work with you. And without that, you can't do it. MDGs have to be done at the local government level in the states. This is a responsibility of states and local governments. It's actually not a responsibility of the federal government. They can provide the plan, the policy environment, and the framework for it. But the real implementation is going to happen at the local level. And really people didn't believe we could do it. So that was the first challenge that really we had to get to grips with. And that meant really buying over people to see into how we were going to do this, and especially the media. I have to say that the media were a great part of whether this was going to be successful or not. I think the second impediment was that people's expectations for this to happen overnight at the level at which they wanted to feel the impact was quite high. Those expectations were valid, but the reality was that we had to do an awful lot to build a system to deliver these services. So it wasn't a question of whether you had money to do it. It was a question of whether you had the money and the capacity to do it. So you could give money down to the local governments and say, build primary health care centers, and we did that. But where do you bring the nurses from, and the midwives and the doctors and the regular system to provide the drugs that are needed in those hospitals to deliver that service? How do you get people from rural areas in time into an antenatal or into deliver? These are things that we didn't really think about because we didn't realize how bad things were on the ground until you actually go there to say we're going to do it in a real way. So the challenge of how long it was going to take to get that impact. The second challenge was that the MDG funding was additionality to what government was already doing. So it was to direct it better and make it more coherent and coordinated. And that was difficult to do. It's always difficult to work with other people's money. People saw the MDG money as coming to do the MDGs rather than trying to focus it and leverage it and be part of it, not the money that was going to resolve the problem of the MDGs. Another issue, I think, again, as I will come back to the capacities, was a really quite big one in terms of monitoring and evaluating what we were doing. We could build something on the ground. Did it deliver a service? Who was going to tell us that? So mechanisms for monitoring and evaluating all of this. Another impediment or a big challenge was that we had to explain and defend budgets to the National Assembly. This is an emerging democracy. We have to be accountable. So as an executive, taking these programs to the National Assembly, explaining them, and having them buy into what it essentially is an agenda that is international to do on the ground, and seeing dividends of democracy within their lifetime. Remembering that a lot of what we have to do with achieving the MDGs is over 15 years. You have a cycle of 4 years of a government in power. So how do you match what they would like to be able to show people they've done in their time with the long-term investments that need to happen to sustain those gains that you've had? So that was another challenge, really managing expectations of all of this. we did have a governance challenge. There is absolutely no way we cannot talk about the issues of corruption. And I think that that was a major one, that we had to find ways in putting checks and balances in so we could account for what we did with this money to Nigerians first, to the international community who gave us the debt relief, but also to the National Assembly who had that remit for oversight in questioning what we did with the resources once we got them.
I've heard people say that one of the other big challenge was the cynicism of the ordinary Nigerian and I mean the belief in government that here they go again and then at the end of the day will not see anything. How did you succeed in, short-circuiting this cynicism and getting people to know that, look, this is for all of us and we can leverage on it?
A lot about this was teamwork. First of all, making sure that the MDG office was not the one to do the implementation. It was about the MDG office facilitating that implementation with state governments, local governments, with ministries, departments and agencies. And each president that I served under really facilitated the coordinating mechanism for bringing us together to explain what we were doing on a quarterly basis. So that was very helpful. The other thing that we did was really to engage civil society in the monitoring and evaluation, to actually employ them to come and tell Nigerians what we had done with it. If we were asking government to judge itself, we may have been perceived to give the right answers in order to look good all the time. But in this case, we took a risk and we took out civil society and professionals to tell us, A, did we spend the money where we said we were going to spend it and get the quality of those goods we said we were going to get, whether they were bed nets or a primary health care center or a borehole. And B, civil society to tell us, did that service then deliver? So in spite of where you put the primary health care center, was it delivering antenatal services? Were women able to go into that primary health care center and deliver their babies safely? Was there an immunization program going on?
Well, next Sunday, we're going to play the full interview with Amina Mohammed, Assistant Secretary General at the United Nations. She spoke about corruption in government. She spoke about developing countries and the challenges before them. And she spoke about that controversial issue of underage marriage. So join us for that next week. But still in the studio, I have distinguished Senator Ibrahim Mantu. And you were talking about an example of what happened in Adamawa State, for instance. And I've heard people say that Nigeria's democracy may never do well if the powers of governors in the various states are not curtailed. Because the governors decides who becomes the councillor, determines who becomes the commissioner, determines who becomes the minister, determines who becomes the senator, determines who becomes House of Reps. The person that goes to a board becomes ambassador. Is it not something that worries you, Senator Mantu?
Well, I'm very worried because, as you know, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That is exactly what we are witnessing. And unless we go back to basis and practice democracy as it ought to be practiced, or as it is being practiced in advanced democracies, in other words, the principles and practice of democracy must be put into place. Otherwise, many of the parties will fall by the wayside. Because if we were doing these things because we didn't have a serious opposition, today we are beginning to have an opposition that can be an alternative government. And I'm very happy about this development because I'm a Democrat. I am happy that the APC has been registered, and I'm happy that we are now going to play the game according to how it should be played. And by registering the APC is going to put us on our toes, and we must then go back to basis and make sure that we meet the expectations and aspirations of the Nigerian electorate. Otherwise, they will say no to us and embrace an alternative. But I want to tell you one thing, that the PDP is not sleeping. For you to be able to catch up with us, you must sort of double your speed. And if you are doubling your speed, we are tripling our speed. So you can never catch up with us.
But the PDM just got registered, and people say that's a hit on your reconciliation efforts, because most of the people that have gone to PDM are core members of the PDP.
Well, let me tell you one thing.
And I even hear there's a suspicion that some very high-ranking members of the PDP may have funded the PDM.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't work on rumors. I work on facts available to me. But I want to tell you one thing, that those of us in the PDP are very much happy with this development. Indeed, I was so excited that the PDM has been listed as a political party, and also another one called Independent Democrats. You see, the more the merrier. If you are actually in this game and you know that you have more people, contesting for the same cup, then you know you have to work harder to make sure that you beat everybody to it. The PDP has an advantage because most of these people that like I told you, who actually are living or have left, they are not living with their souls. They are going there with their bodies. And so when our reconciliation efforts reaches them, they will bring back their soul into the body back to the PDP, because like I said to you, nobody will build a beautiful house and leave it to go and start building another one, which is not sure of.
Let's conclude our conversation by you telling me truly and sincerely whether you believe, with all the egos in the PDP, with all the big men in the PDP, with all the big personalities, with all the personal aggrandizement in the PDP, that this your reconciliation will be successful.
I have no doubt in my mind that our reconciliation will be successful, because the test of the party is in the eating. And as I've told you, we have started on a very, very sound footing, and I'm very happy with the progress we have so far made. Today, people who were not talking to one another before are now working together, hand in gloves, and jumping and singing power to the people once more. So I have no doubt in my mind that our reconciliation effort will bring back everybody to the fore, and the PDP will once more take its natural leading position in the scheme of things.
Distinguished Senator, on that optimistic note, I must thank you for coming on our program.
Thank you.
And I wish you all the luck.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
Right.
And that's our package on Frontline today. Let's do it again on Sunday. I am Obiora Ilo from Abuja, Nigeria, leaving you with our Frontline exchange.